So what does London have to do to stay ahead?
Well, it's quite interesting. 8 years ago, the debate would not have been what do we do to stay ahead. It was how do we fight off being overtaken by Paris and Frankfurt. And I would be mad to try and persuade you that all London's success is down to the mayor. But people would be mad to suggest I haven't played a role in that and made the key decisions that were right. When I was elected, we were being told congestion is so bad, traffic is so bad in central London, businesses will start to relocate to our major competitors. And it's got worse in the last year, but it's got worse in central London because Thames Water and to a lesser degree the gas company have actually finally got round to starting to replace their mains. It'll be very difficult for the next 2 years, but when that happens, we'll go back to the traffic speeds we had before. Still today, 70,000 less cars come into central London. And if we hadn't done that, now with Thames Water replacing their mains, and they need to because a quarter of the water leaks away, it would be gridlock. If you look at the position where we were 8 years ago, no one would have conceived we'd be where we are today. I accept what Lionel says. New York remains a much more substantial financial centre because it's based on a much vaster economy. And similarly Tokyo. They primarily serve their domestic financial needs. London will never be able to do that. We have to serve the world. And that's why, whilst it's not surprising that in America you're currently having a debate about who can erect the biggest walls, who can keep out the most immigrants, who can stop the most Chinese imports, if ever we slip into that frame of thinking, we are doomed. We've been successful because we've been open. This is the only city or region in the whole of the European Union that matches American levels of productivity and competitiveness. And it's because the world comes here, people come here to make their fortune. As Lionel said, a third of the people in our workforce were born abroad. Huge dynamism in our economy, and the rest of Britain gets a 20 billion a year subsidy. Now, one of the things we've turned round is after 30 years of neglect, we started to get real investment. The £16 billion for Crossrail will transform this city. That new underground running from Heathrow right through the through Oxford Street, financial district, and then on to all those brownfield sites where we can get 300,000 people living in the developments along the Thames Gateway. All of that would not be possible if we hadn't been able to finally persuade the government after 40 years to come up with the funding package in which they're putting £5 billion in. And perhaps the most important single issue facing the next mayor is getting that right. Because if we get it wrong, the scale of that project is enough to bankrupt London. And we need to look for the best people. And I make no apology for saying we'll bring in people who will be earning more than anyone else in this room in order to deliver that project on time and to budget. Because if you think we can actually attract the best people in the world to manage these big projects and not pay them the money, you're wrong. Is this the world I would have created? A point in the sense that Lionel raised? No. I'd much prefer to live in a very different world based on my youthful fantasies about how the human race should be. But it's the world we're living in. The job of the mayor is to prepare this city and its people for what is coming, give them the skills and the opportunities, to give them skills to access those opportunities. The government's giving the mayor elected on May the 1st £4 billion to spend in the next 3 years to build 50,000 affordable homes, and also giving the mayor the control over that budget and to set it. I'll tell you what I will do, much less in the way of 1- and 2-person units, much more 3-, 4- and 5-bedroom homes, so we provide the range of housing that people need. The government's transferring control of the skills budget in London, and we've failed abysmally. Kids are still going through our schools and leaving unable to read and write. We need to have a proper second chance programme to those people who've been left behind by the education system, failed by the education system, haven't shared in London's incredible success, and mainly concentrated in the East End. And it was why we bid for the Olympics. I'd never been to a sporting event in my life. Well, I lie. I went to a sporting event once in my life and fell asleep.
What was it?
It was cricket at the Oval. John Major will never forgive me. We bid because no government would ever have been prepared to put the billions of pounds into rebuilding the East End, decontaminating the land, putting in infrastructure. Only the Damoclean sword of the Olympics with a fixed end point would actually have forced them to put that money in. So London's got to be successful, but everyone needs to share in it, or we'll lose the consensus behind that commitment to be open to globalisation. And finally, on the point that so worked up my dear friend Nick, it's also got to be sustainable. And it does mean, no, you can't drive a great big gas-guzzling car into the centre of London. We want you to buy... We're not saying you can't drive a car. My partner loves driving. We bought a Prius. But what we want you to buy... we want you to buy is the car that produces the least emissions. And you can get a car of the size you want, largely the model you want, but the engine that doesn't pump out the CO2. And what's the point? What is the point? Almost everywhere in the city, it's a 20-mile-per-hour zone or a 30-mile-per-hour zone. There's no point having a great big Ferrari that can go from... that can go from 0 to 150 miles in 5 seconds, because there's nowhere in London you can do that. And so let's also make it a sustainable city. And what we have done by making London the centre of the C40, the 40 biggest cities on earth, whilst the governments still argue about who's to blame for climate change or who should go first, we're getting on, retrofitting our buildings, doing congestion charges. And I don't mind calling it a pollution charge. I think London has become the centre of debate about how you govern and lead great cities, and I take some credit for that. Not all of it, many people have helped, and the dynamism and openness of the business community, as well as the trade unions and the Green Movement, have formed a coalition of interests in London that I think has created the most exciting city on earth to be in at this point in time.
Thank you.